It is the second look. Got two Dans, Morgan, Austin, might refer to them that throughout the process. I'm Neil Atkinson. Thank you very much for joining us today to look back at West Ham United 1, Liverpool 1. The manager ends up in a hell of a selection dilemma from the sound of things, Dan. He's got it's a dilemma. It isn't a dilemma in that they do appear to be dropping like flies around him. But he goes with Lallana ahead of Shaqiri, for instance. He goes with Milner at right back ahead of Camacho and maybe using Milner in midfield. He ends up, therefore, with Keita, Lallana and Fabinho. And I think my first thing on this is these are three lads who haven't played together very much.
And they very much looked like it as well. I don't think any of them really looked as though they knew what their individual roles were as part of that trio, and it felt like they were all trying to cover for each other at various times as well. I think I felt especially sorry for Fabinho because, well, firstly, he's played the most football, but not with either of those two. But he looked like he was doing maybe 4 or 5 jobs at once. So he's trying to play his own midfield role. He was trying to sort of guide those two through the game as well, I think, and try and get us up the pitch a bit quicker because both of them were holding onto the ball for really quite a long amount of time. And he was also covering for Matip and Milner on that side a lot. And it just looked like he, in particular, was on a bit of a hard to nothing because he had no one really helping him out. And also was trying to do the jobs of basically 3 people at once. The other two weren't so bad individually, but neither of them had any kind of positive influence, tangible influence on the game of football, I don't think. So I think that's where we struggle from. That's why we have more defensive issues than what we would usually do. That's why the front three aren't in the game as much as what we would hope, because there was basically just a gap in midfield where we weren't able to affect the game.
It seems to me like we go 1-0 up ahead of the run of play. Dan Morgan, it's not smooth for us, but we do it, we make it work, we make it count, we get there. But all the way through, it's interesting that Dan mentioned moving the ball quickly. All the way through, you felt that the ball wasn't zipping around. You felt as though there were big holes in terms of where people should be in the middle of that park.
Yeah, I think if there's one thing that might keep him up nights is Shaqiri around the 2 games and where to use him, because I think if there's one thing, there's one lesson to be learned, it's maybe prioritising getting to 2-0 in both games and putting all your eggs in the basket of getting to 2-0 and trying to manage it from there. And that's very easy in hindsight, isn't it? Of course it is, but I think maybe I get the idea of not going with Shaqiri at home to Leicester and having him as your joker with 30 to go. But I think last night there's just a bit of value in, especially in terms of helping the shape, throwing Shaqiri in there. And I think we see when Keita went further back, and I've championed this for a couple of weeks now, is with Keita, just give him as much pitch to look at as possible. Keep the game in front of him.
But don't you think he's worried about Keita out of possession? Don't you think that's what's going through his head? That he's worried that Keita out of possession is not doing the business for him?
I think he is, but I think we've seen Fabinho earlier in the season. If you have someone next to a player like that, it can usually help them. And It's ironic that is Fabinho who can then help Keita through a game now. Fabinho's had Henderson, he's had Wijnaldum. I think last night, if you'd have just put them two and just said to them two, don't move within 10 yards of each other and just put fires out all over the pitch and then maybe drop Shaqiri, and I think that's where your shape might have looked a little bit better. And I think there's other things to factor as well. I think it's getting referenced a lot now, the breaks in between games and stuff like that, and whether it's benefiting, whether it's not. I think there's a couple of players, and I think this goes league-wide and football-wide, who actually benefit from playing 2 games a week. And I think around our side, I think you look at the likes of Robertson, Firmino, I think they're 2 lads, for example, who just love getting on the pitch and get their touch, get their fitness, get their muscle memory from playing games. And that's completely fine. Like, I've done that myself. I've played with lads who will tell you that they'll love to play at the start of the season and at the end because they don't have to train and they can just get on the pitch twice a week. So I think there's loads of little things, but I think getting to 2-0 has got to be a priority in these games now.
There's the strange little thing happens, I think, actually at 1-0. It's only 1-0 for 5, 6, 7 minutes, I think, Dan. But I was hoping you'd see us put the hammer down a little bit. You know, it is against the run of play. But this is a side that shipped 16 goals to Liverpool in the 4 previous times they'd faced them. I mean, there was a real idea there that they might have crumbled a little bit. And they'd also have felt hard done to. They'd have felt like that goal was right against the run of play. And it does seem to me that it was a shame that you didn't really get to see the intent of Liverpool after that goal. But I think that's a tempo thing, and that's no Wijnaldum and no Henderson.
Yeah, I think it looked as though, whether it was a conscious decision or not, we slowed it down, or at least attempted to slow it down after we scored that first goal, possibly in the hope that that kind of lulls them into accepting the status quo of the game and that Liverpool are going to have more of the ball and that they're just going to have to play on the break. But they were quite relentless straight away again from kick-off. I think they'd had that positive sort of 15 minutes at the beginning where they had a couple of, sort of half chances, shots going narrowly wide and stuff, and took half from it and probably realised that, I'm sure a lot of them felt aggrieved, first of all, about the circumstances of the goal and that it was offside, and then also the fact that it wasn't really in keeping with the way that the match was going. So I think a lot of it was about their psychology more than necessarily what Liverpool were doing, because Liverpool didn't really do anything necessarily different after the restart. It was just a case of they were doing the same thing and it still wasn't quite good enough, and West Ham managed to create another chance and they finally took one as opposed to the ones that they missed early on.
I'm not sure, I take what you're saying and everyone is in the same boat as you, Dan, but I thought they were there for the taking first 15. And I know that they get the chances, but their chances seem more from us just not showing enough conviction in the tackle. I think with both chances, there's 2 or 3 chances for us to take the ball off them and turn them over, but I don't think we were getting any pressure on the centre-halves. They weren't ratting the keeper like we've seen in previous games. I didn't see a big plan from West Ham to come out at us. I think we gave them the confidence to grow into the game, and that's what disappointed me slightly, because I thought they were there.
What they'd obviously worked on, Dan Austin, was the set pieces. They get the goal from one and they get the fantastic opportunity from the other. But all the way through, it looked to me like they'd done their homework and they put proper plans together. This is how Liverpool defend set pieces. This is how we can exploit it.
Yes, I think they had done. I'm not sure how much of a coherent plan that they had for it though, or how much they entirely relied upon it, because I think, similar to what Dan just mentioned, I think a lot of it was us defending extremely poorly from them. So they did quite well with them, as you say, they made a load of chances and they scored the goal from it. But I don't think they did anything particularly intelligent. It wasn't like they were making brilliant runs or they were overloading the box and we just couldn't deal with it, or they had someone really tall playing against someone small and doing it like that. The little move for the goal was clever, but if you're awake, if you're concentrating and you're defending properly, you probably stop it. The one for Declan Rice is just extremely poor defending. It's a good ball in the box. I don't think it's anything especially more clever than that. So yeah, I think they've definitely identified it as something that they can exploit Liverpool from, but I don't think they were especially brilliant at it. The balls they were putting in the box weren't excellent balls. It was more complete frailty from Liverpool, and I think a lot of that is down to the fact that the personnel changes. And it's not just in terms of the actual fact that, it's Joel Matip and it's not Lovren. Yeah. It's a lot of it to do with the fact that it's Milner, but Milner's your full-back and not your centre-mid. So he's got to be in a slightly different area of the pitch. So where you're Virgil van Dijk and you're used to Milner picking up this man in this area of the box, he's actually over there now. And now Lallana's doing that job instead. And it just sort of throws you a little bit. And the psychology of it and the mentality of it can just make that little bit of a difference where, as the ball's getting put in the box, you have a little bit of a doubt in your mind. And you're not sure whether just to track your man or whether you've got to sort of cover for Lallana as well. And I think that's where a lot of it comes from.
Do you agree with that, and that's fair?
Yeah, I agree. I think there's maybe... I don't think we're going to change the line is the thing for me. I don't think we're going to all of a sudden drop 5 yards deeper for the next 3 games whenever we concede a free kick. I don't think that's a thing.
It's worked really well for lots of the season as well, so it's not like you would really want them to throw it away. It's just that the last couple of games it's been an issue.
I mean, there's a couple of things. Firstly, stop giving away daft free kicks.
Mm-hmm.
I mean, that's fundamental to it. If you don't do that, then you're not going to have to put yourself in them situations. And I think that's the thing that's not being addressed more than the actual sorting the line and the conceding of chances. Maybe as well, I think maybe there might be a case to ask a little bit more from the goalkeeper. And I'm not criticising him in any way, but maybe just ask him to take his starting position 2 or 3 yards further forward with the notion that I'm going to come for this, whatever. And for him to just scream his head off at the lads in front of him, because that, as we know, we've seen down the years, that can be enough for an opposition player to just check his run or to maybe be a little bit off put by the run into the box and stuff like that. I'm not saying he's rooted, I'm not saying he's anything to do with it, but I'm saying if we're going to change it up, that might be a way to do it.
Okay, we had a little chat coming up in the tactics board about Felipe Anderson cheating, especially second half, and keeping an unbelievably wide position. It's hosted by a man who wants to be Lou Barlow, but he's more like Ken Barlow. Liverpool's 1-1 draw against West Ham United felt hugely frustrating. We've just talked there about the set pieces and West Ham's wising up around set pieces from a Liverpool point of view, something for us to bear in mind. But I think there's something else has gone on recently as well. I think that some managers have got a fair bit of data now looking at this Liverpool side, how good it looked around the December time, how it looked back last September, sorry. All of that is in people's minds now. But what I think is a little bit different is I think the games that we've had in January have maybe given people a few clues. I don't believe Crystal Palace came with a plan to use Wilfried Zaha to expose Liverpool on the right-hand side. I just think they use Wilfried Zaha every game. But what it showed was the opportunity to get some joy down there against James Milner, yes, but I think it'd be against any real side. And what we saw here, and I've sort of tried to represent this with my little counters, last night it was unbelievable, genuinely unbelievable, from goal kicks, from the West Ham point of view, the amount of space Felipe Anderson was ending up in on the right-hand side of the pitch, that the whole of the play would sort of gather around here, as it does from goal kicks, but Anderson would have the licence, the room to cheat, and West Ham wanted to get the play into here, and then look to switch it big and look if they could expose one-on-one with Milner, Shaqiri or Lallana coming back, and disrupt Liverpool that way. My point here is that it didn't really work last night in that second half period, but we are now coming into a period of football matches where clever coaches with good players are putting together specific game plans tailored to this Liverpool side. They've got to try to find something. In the past, we've talked about targeting. They target our right more when they've got Trent and Lovren, etc., etc. And that's undoubtedly a thing. But at the minute, I think what they're looking to do is find a specific weakness more than the idea of going, well, Virgil van Dijk and Andy Robertson are a really good side and you've got to try and do something somewhere else. It was quite surgical from West Ham, and as I say, it didn't really lead to anything. But it suggested to me that people have been putting a lot of energy into working out how to disrupt this Liverpool side. And even if it doesn't work in terms of creating something, does it disrupt Liverpool's shape? Does it leave James Milner not quite sure where he should be, what he should do? Does it do the same thing to Lallana or Shaqiri? Am I meant to go out there and watch him? Is that working for some of these sides that we're coming up against? And is that having a knock-on effect as to how well we can build play? We're going to find out weeks and months to come. It's going to be huge, this running from a Liverpool point of view. And I think that we're going to see more and more of sides having a little bit more of an idea than maybe they had in October, maybe they had in November or even December, how to get at us. Put those counters away, soft lad. Let's get back on with the job here. Creativity then is, if there's a big worry off the back of the last two, I've got to say it's probably, I think Fabianski was busier than Schmeichel, but I think he was busier in the sense of he was fielding rather than the idea that he was saving things, if you know what I mean. He comes off his line, does some good work, I actually think, anticipating a couple of dangerous situations. But my point is, neither Fabianski nor Schmeichel have been pulling off magnificent saves. Neither of them have had enough to do for me, Dan Austin.
No, I agree with you. Fabianski did an awful lot of catching very hopeful crosses into the box, which he did well with, but there was no real direction, there was no purpose in them, I don't think. It was just a case of, well, we're at the edge of the box now, we've gone left to right a couple of times, I suppose I'll just put it in and see what happens. And you know, they've got 2 6'4", 6'5" centre-halves and a really good goalkeeper there, and we had very little presence in the penalty area as well, so it just wasn't a way through for us at any point, I don't think. The worry about it is that from those two midfielders, from Keita and Lallana, the one thing that you would ask of them and expect of them, even if they're being dropped in a game where they wouldn't be expected to, or when they've not been playing for a while and they're a bit out of rhythm, is to create things, is to play 1-2s, is to make good runs, is to have your head up and have a bit of vision about you. And it felt like neither of them really did. I think Keita had improved second half, but he still didn't quite know when to release the ball. Finally, his decision making, maybe when he got to the edge of the area, wasn't great. Lallana just struggled to influence anything really and to get actually on the football. And that's the biggest shame, because who knows now at this point how long Ronaldo and Henderson are going to be out for, how many games they're going to miss. And these two are going to have to play some football, at least. Even if everyone's fully fit and we go through the rest of the season with a full 25-man squad, they're going to get some games because of the way that the season works. And the fact that they looked so impotent themselves as individuals, but also in terms of getting some sort of rhythm with the other players around them, was a real shame, because I thought that had such an effect on the front three. Individually, none of them played well, the front three, but I really don't think they were helped by the fact that those around them weren't giving them anything.
The major thing I thought that you saw was the front three not getting the ball quickly enough. Dan, I think that there's individuals there, for instance, I think Firmino really has a poor game. His touch just never comes all the way through the match. You mentioned before that maybe he needs the more regular football to get himself going. But for me, the ball was just not getting to the front three quickly enough. And for me, that was where you were missing Henderson and Wijnaldum, or possibly even Milner as well, just getting out of the way and facilitating those three to go and play.
Yeah, massively. And I think the one thing that frustrated me was the Keita little chip ball to Origi in the last second, and you're thinking, well, can we get a bit more of that 45 minutes ago? You know, I think the ball early enough, but also setting the narrative as well early enough in that second half, in punching it in early and going, well, this is how it's going to be played out now. I think Firmino's interesting in that. I think Firmino very much plays on percentages a lot of the time, and when it's not happening for the team, he looks like the worst player on the pitch sometimes, because I think Gibbo referenced it in the post-match show last night. He says Firmino looked like he was just playing blind passes. Well, he does half the time, because he knows where his teammates should be when it's all coherent. I think last night there's just that little bit of doubt across the whole side, and everyone's that little bit hesitant, whether it's due to a number of things or personnel or playing next to the lad you're not really quite sure of or whatever. I think all of that takes shape, and it means that I think most of everyone, Salah suffers, because he all of a sudden finds himself in these spaces that you can tell he's saying, I want the ball 2-3 seconds ago here, because I've got another man coming in on me, I'm getting shifted right. You can tell, the minute he got the ball, the West Ham player marking him was getting told where to take him outside, and it was blind alleys. So by then, I mean, for me, I was out. I was checking. I was cashing out on 70, and I was saying, just get out of here, point, because it does. And I think that, I know we'll get into it now, but the hindsight of the last two results, we won't know for a good while yet, but they still might turn out to be good points.
They might turn out to be good points. Just one more little thing on this, Dan, is the fullbacks. I think Milner, you know, for instance, he sets up the goal, and if anything, that almost tells you the value of what we've been getting from fullback. I think Robertson has found it odd recently. I think he's struggled with who he's playing with to a certain extent, but he's been a little bit off it. Maybe it's because he's almost too much onus on him because he knows that the right back's not there. But I think we're really seeing the value, even at times this season when he was frustrating. Right now, we're really seeing the value of Trent.
Yeah, I agree with that. I think there's issues with both of the fullbacks that played last night at the minute, because Milner, although he was really, really good at Wolves, looks like as soon as there's a really pacey winger up against him and a fullback can double up with him, he's going to struggle. And he can still offer loads of things. He can still offer leadership from over there. He's still really good on the ball. His field of vision in terms of going forward, he can get us out of tight spots, a fullback and everything. But he doesn't have the all-round capability to play that position that Trent does. He doesn't have the ability to get forward and join the attack that Trent does. Robertson looks to me a bit like he's struggling with concentration lately. Just seems like he switches off a little bit, which you're not used to from him, because he's constantly on it, he's constantly moving, he's always aware of his man, he very rarely gets beaten, whereas that's happening quite a bit lately, and he's given away the fouls. He did against Leicester, he did a couple last night as well. And that to me could be as simple as the fact that he's a father again, and he's got a baby, and he might just be up at nights, and he might be tired and struggling to focus, and that's perfectly fine. And even though it's a football team, you think of them all as footballers, you have to be able to cop for things like that, because people have actual real lives that you need to deal with as well, and that you need to account for. So maybe he's just in a time in his life where he's still really, really good at football, but maybe he could just do with slightly more help, because that's the way that things are going for him. I
think last night's another example as well as to why you need to go and make Aaron Wan-Bissaka one of your main priorities this summer. Because that's, I think Milner just emphasises how hard it is to play fullback for this side. And
I'm adding Declan Rice to my Aaron Wan-Bissaka list.
Oh, Declan Rice is brilliant.
Isn't he?
He's really, really good. Everyone's been telling me all year that he's really, really good, and I've seen him play quite well. But he was the best midfielder on the pitch last night by a long, long way. Yeah,
and he may well be a centre-half as well in the end, given him. But the main thing I took from the match was, can we just write them a big cheque right now for... It's not the way it works, sadly, but can we write them a big cheque right now and put him in the coach?
I told him just before half-time that I told Craig Hannon that he's chosen Ireland and not England, and Craig Hannon was furious. It's great.
That feels like 3 points, if nothing else. Is this the blip, Dan Morgan? Because my thing on this could be the blip that I think there's been almost like there's a periodisation thing about them, whether or not they've decided to, they've gone away and they've had the break, but also you get the impression this season was built to have a physical peak that ended at Man City away. Take a breath and then build a physical peak that hopefully goes from the end of February through until the end of the season. I think that's probably how this season is. So my thing is this the blip? And if it is, we're a win at home against Bournemouth away from being 11 points from 15. So, it puts the emphasis on that game to really say, all right, lads, we've had a bit of a slowdown here. Now we're back, but look where we are.
I think it is the blip. I don't think he's accounted for the blip. I don't think he's planned the season and said we might drop off here.
Yep.
I think he's just he's had to look at what he's got and what he hasn't got to put on the pitch. And I think he's coughed for it a lot more than we have, to be fair, as fans. And I think the players have also. So I think it is the blip. I think that Look, I look at it this way in terms of just how everyone's head is with all this. I think, is there a strong possibility that Liverpool can go the season without losing a game again? Absolutely, yeah. Can Liverpool go the season and only draw another 2 games and no more? Yeah, that's enough to win the league. You know, if we're doing the whole win the league chat, we need to win 11 and draw 2. Am I right? In 13?
I think so, yeah.
I think so. So that's.
I think they'd have to be perfect. City'd have to be perfect not to overtake us.
Yeah, basically. So I mean, that's how I'm working it out. But I think the one thing you do have to caveat that with is that Bournemouth is now must win, whichever way you dress it up. And I don't want to get anxiety stations through the roof because we know that, you know, it's there already with many people. But I think Bournemouth is one where you just have to find a way to get through, and it's one where the manager's going to have to earn his money. Because I think with that break then, and then going to Old Trafford, I think that's the one where you can maybe say, all right, lads, this is where we all look each other in the eye here. And I think if he's looking at it, he may think, if we can go to United, the best version of ourselves, and pick a win up there, then I think that's enough momentum to then pick you back up and carry you through. I think he's looking at United already, but he's got to beat Bournemouth.
And Bayern as well. Bayern as well before United, because that's going to be part of the same journey. Because no, it is. I think that's part of this. The idea of the best version of Liverpool is going to return / actually emerge on the 19th of February, and in the meantime, you just get through Bournemouth.
But I think Old Trafford's one where you can really sit your lads down and look them in the eye and say, it's on you now. This, if you've got it, you prove it now, or you don't at all. And I think that's why you need Bournemouth. You need Bournemouth to just get him to that point.
He does indeed. We all need Bournemouth. We shouldn't be anxious. We should be enjoying it. That is the big thing. That it should be the big takeaway from the process. Thank you very much to Dan Morgan. Thank you very much to Dan Austin. It's been a second look.